So one of my most anticipated indie games of 2026 is finally out, and oh man, it is as wild and weird as I was hoping for. This is ChainStaff. Now, I was lucky enough to get my hands on this a couple weeks ahead of release, but rather than just drop a quick review, I wanted to dip my toes in the acid-laced waters of the developer's back catalog, with titles dating as far back as 2008. So let's dive in to Mommy's Best Games. First things first though, their newest title, ChainStaff, is a certified banger. At its core, it's a search action platformer, pulling ideas and influence from tons of classic games, all taking place in hand-drawn alien landscapes inspired by surreal progressive rock album covers and Amiga box art. Since the game is new, I'll avoid any big spoilers here today, but feel free to skip ahead to the rest of the retrospective if you want to go into this one totally fresh. And for the record, this footage is all on normal difficulty, and it was a pre-release version of the game, so some things might change with later patches or other settings. Now, the premise puts you in the boots of a half-man, half-alien bug super soldier dude, skilled with guns, of course, but also in telepathic command of the ChainStaff, a multi-purpose spine-like tool used for navigation and visceration alike. The planet is under attack from star spores, which are converting humanity into bugs, and it's up to you to save the day. Right off the bat, you'll need to come to terms with the game's fairly unique controls. It can feel a bit complex and overwhelming at first, but it doesn't take too long to get used to it. Basically, you can run and gun around Contra style, but you also have a wealth of things that can be accomplished with the ChainStaff. It can be thrown like a spear, either quickly or in an arc, or with a precise and charged up strike. The ChainStaff can be thrown into walls or the ground to climb onto, or used as a shield from oncoming enemies and shots, or protect you from hazards from above that would otherwise crush you. It can also be used like a grappling hook, reminiscent of something like the Claw in Bionic Commando, but actually its fluidity is more like the Umihara Kawase games. But it's very cool how you can basically latch the ChainStaff onto almost anything, even enemies or other alien denizens of the world, and this freedom of movement really makes the game a joy to explore once you get the hang of the controls. And the game is a good blend of brutal and forgiving. You'll surely die often, but there are checkpoints in place that feel fair and also won't let you coast along too much. The game world is split up into 10 different biomes, each with their own unique look and types of creatures, and often containing branching paths, hidden items to upgrade your abilities, and fellow humans that can either be rescued for improving your various technologies, or even just suck out their brains or eat their heart for other bonuses. Your decisions here can even lead to different endings, but more importantly, they really do alter the gameplay. These different areas are also home to absolutely massive bosses with very creative and generally disgusting designs, and these striking moments are where the game really shines for me. I'm a sucker for gross monsters, of course, but adding in a variety of strategies and approaches that can be made to take them down makes for some extremely satisfying battles. I also really dig the look of this game. As mentioned earlier, it evokes the artwork from artists like Roger Dean, stuff you'd see on old Amiga games and progressive rock records, with a dynamically evolving soundtrack to match. There are also numerous cutscenes with a fun comic book style, oozing with B-movie vibes, and it never takes itself too seriously. And not a sign of generative AI to be seen. Hell yeah. I won't get too much deeper here, but after my first hours with the game, I can easily give it a recommendation, especially if you think throwing Contra, Metroid, and Shadow of the Beast into a blender seems like a great idea. And while it's probably a lean and mean first playthrough that comes in likely under 10 hours, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and there's plenty of other meat on the bone with finding everything or going after multiple endings. And after this short bit of time with ChainStaff, and quickly really falling in love with the vibes and creativity on display, I just had to see what previous things led up to it, and explore the back catalog of Mommy's Best Games, originally founded in 2007 by Nathan Fouts, who had formerly worked for Insomniac Games and on several other projects. We'll start with their beginnings on Xbox Live Arcade, but I will mention all footage here will be from the remastered DX versions, which luckily are all available on Steam and other modern console platforms, featuring better resolution and additional content not in the originals. First up is Weapon of Choice, released in 2008, and immediately you can see it shares some DNA with ChainStaff. It's also a run and gun, set in a surreal hand-drawn alien world, this time with you in control of a squad of wacky operatives, each with their own weaponry and special abilities. And again, to my delight, there's plenty of giant, insane boss monsters. The levels also branch off with different exits, leading you through various story arcs, so there's plenty of variety in each attempt, which lasts as long as your squad does. When you die, another remaining one gets dropped in, and you can at least attempt to rescue one comrade as you leave the stage. This also features an interesting slow motion effect, which triggers when you're about to be killed by something. But even then, it may be too late to avoid your demise. The movement in this game is also quite unique, not as complex as ChainStaff, but you have these weird spider limbs to latch onto walls and platforms, on top of the unique aerial maneuvers for each of the characters. And it's too bad I never discovered this back when it came out. I surely would have loved it at the time. But even when ChainStaff exists today, this is still a very cool look into where its ideas began to germinate, and it's still an absolute blast to play, and maybe even preferred for some folks looking for a bit more straightforward action as opposed to exploration. Mommy's Best would hit Xbox Live Arcade again in 2010 with Shoot 'Em Up, their take on the shoot 'em up genre, but with a unique spin. Rather than just shmupping one life at a time, gathering 1-ups will add to your ship's fleet in real time, and you control the expansion and contraction of your formation in tune with the inevitable bullet chaos on the screen. Now, it may look harder than it actually is. I managed to beat normal mode on my first 20-minute playthrough, but to the game's credit, it does a great job of easing you into its concept while offering a very high skill ceiling for score attack junkies. And there are multiple difficulty options and achievements to hunt down as well. And it still retains that wild aesthetic and referential sense of humor that would be a common strain throughout their entire gamography. And if this boss doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what to tell you. Late 2010 also saw their release of Explosionade, another further exploration into classic genres, this time with an action puzzle-ish platformer hybrid with tons of short single-screen levels. You play a soldier left behind, denied joining a cool battle, and relegated to janitorial duties, who finds a mech prototype and takes it for a spin in the base's sewer system. The mech is pretty clunky, but you have some interesting capabilities aside from your gun and grenade launcher, including jump jets, and a shield that not only protects you, but also allows you to bubble bounce all over the place. It's Bubble Bobble meets Battletech. Let's go. Now this is a pretty fun one. You can go for points, speed, or a combination of both, or just take your time to clear every enemy and grab every gold bar. There's numerous smartly designed rooms and devious combinations of enemies that make for a lot of possibilities here, all topped off with a shallow but entertaining plot with bits of silly dialogue in the mix between the stages. And wrapping up the Xbox Live games here, we have Game Type, released in late 2011, which honestly is a bit more of a shitpost than a proper game. released as an elaborate parody and criticism of changes made to the Xbox Live dashboard at the time, which opted to bombard users with ads and non-game content, effectively burying the visibility of games, indie titles especially. Game Type launches you headfirst into a mock version of that old dashboard, complete with goofy ads that you can interact with, but with the first goal of the game to actually find the game. From there, Game Type has you flying around a stock image girl in a hoodie in a basic bullet hell shmup, with the enemies originating from all of the wacky advertisements from earlier. The game is still pretty fun, honestly, balancing enemy destruction with harvesting cash for score, and building up enough energy for a parkour laser blast. And you can go head to head with this cat. The game continuously loops and gets gradually more difficult, but there's not much depth here. This is still a fun window into that moment in time, and certainly a bold approach to release such a lambasting of Xbox on its very own storefront.
Sam, there's a beacon somewhere in the vicinity.
Whoa! When did you get so hot in the Trixa?
You mean this body? It's a hologram, allowing you to visualize my AI. It's not real.
But it is hot.
For our next game, Mommy's Best was brought on board to handle development of a 2D entry in the Serious Sam series, with Serious Sam Double D, published by Devolver in 2011, and later getting a Triple XL expanded version in 2013. Devolver reportedly wanted a Contra on acid for this spin-off, so the frameworks in place from the previous weapon of choice would be an obvious fit. So this retains a quite similar feel in gameplay and controls. A notable new addition here is the gun stacking mechanic, which allows for multiple guns and weapons to be attached to each other and used simultaneously after collecting enough connectors. I'll admit to not being very familiar with the rest of the Serious Sam games, but some elements are still here, from its cast of characters and crude humor to its relentless onslaught of absurd enemies. There are even moments when you must create piles of bodies to use as platforms, so yeah, it's a little over the top. In my first impressions of this, it's pretty fun, but it doesn't quite feel as unique and compelling as their earlier games. But it's also not overly long or anything, so it's an easy one to pick up and play for some instant carnage. Several years later in 2018, Mommy's Best would return with Pig Eat Ball, a wild arcade-like fever dream that asks, what if Pac-Man, but you can barf everywhere? Alright, I'll admit it's kinda hard to neatly fit this into a genre, and I'm all for that. You play as a pig princess avoiding an arranged marriage by donning a cunning disguise and compete with other suitors for her own hand in marriage, and the ridiculous plot thickens from there. You'll also find yourself thickening, as the typical objective for the short stages usually require you to eat every tennis ball. After enough of them, you might be too large to pass through narrow passageways, so it's good that you have a vomit button. The variety of hazards, items, and abilities continuously expand as well, keeping gameplay very fresh and super chaotic. And the short stages can also be replayed for faster times and gold medal completions. There are also 5 diverse worlds as you progress, with over 200 levels total. And Mommy's Best signature style of completely crazy creature design is in full force. Although it's worth noting that they went for a detailed pixel art look here instead of going hand-drawn. And aside from a meaty single-player adventure, it also includes a 4-player party mode and even a level designer. I'm not entirely sure if the ability to share levels still works or not, but you can play a handful of other user-created courses currently. This is definitely a weird one, and another display of passion and creativity that doesn't care to follow trends. Now, the completion of Pig Eat Ball probably marks a point when work on ChainStaff would be about to begin, but 2024 did see one other small game released called Bumpy Grumpy, a clear love letter to early 80s arcade games down to its aesthetics and minimalistic gameplay. And while it's definitely a departure from their other works, that's not a criticism, as this game is really fun. You control frantic Frank, who's running late for work, and his fellow commuters have caused his important papers to go flying all over the roadway. So you drive along 7 lanes, instantly switching to avoid other cars, but you're rewarded with points by passing by them in a neighboring lane. You'll also need to keep an eye out for traffic lights, but don't go too slow for too long either. The further you get, the more chaotic traffic will be, but there are occasional items that can alleviate that. And it does have an ending as well, including a best ending if you can beat the game while collecting all 12 of Frank's papers. It's really frantic arcade action at its core, so don't expect a super deep experience here, but an easy one to drop a quick credit and aim for a high score, or maybe knock out some Steam achievements. And other than that, the only other Mommy's Best games we haven't covered are 2 mobile games that have since been delisted. Emoji Scream, where you yell into your microphone to shoot at incoming annoyances, and Finger Derpy, which kind of looks like Quap meets horse racing. So clearly, the free-spirited creativity found its way into those titles as well. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this quick tour through this developer's work, so go play ChainStaff, and maybe check out the old stuff too if you like it. And if you need another video on surreal and bizarre games, check out my piece on overlooked 3DO games next. And thanks for watching.